Okay, so 2.4 budget. First of all, I've already given it to you here, but budget is comparing income. So that would be money coming in to expenses or money going out. Have you all heard of budget before?
Yeah.
You have. Okay, so, or you've heard of like budgeting. Basically, it's just keeping track of money, right? So what you want to do in order to be responsible is you want to be able to keep track of the money that's coming in versus what you're spending or what's going out. So for some of this stuff, we're going to look ahead to when you're an adult and you have a job and you have bills to pay and all these different things to keep track of. This is what's going to help you with that. Ashawn, I'm going to ask you to sit at the front. And please don't talk again. Thank you. Thank you. Actually, perfect. You can stay there. Jake, you sit at the front so you can see better. You don't have your glasses again today? Okay. Okay, so there's two different types of expenses to keep track of. There's fixed expenses, so that's this first one here, which are the same every month. Can you give me some examples of what you think that might be? What type of expense might you have that would be the same every month? Alex? Okay, so I heard rent, and sorry, what else? Mobile plan? Oh, yeah, so like cell phone? Probably for the most part, right? It might vary depending on what's included in your plan, but yeah, I think that's safe to assume. Rent, cell phone, anything else that might be the same every month? Richard?
Like the hydro and water.
Hydro and water. Okay, so I'll just fill you in a little bit on that. This sort of depends. That you sometimes have options on how you do things, but some of these might depend on how much you've used within the month, right? Tracy, did you, the same thing? Okay, good. Do you get there's other stuff, but do you get the idea based on that? How about variable expenses? Or expenses that change every month. Can you think of what that might be? What might change every month? Tracy? Groceries, yep, that's a good example because it kind of depends, right, on what you're buying, what you're eating. Anything else that you can think of? Real life examples, Alex? Transportation? Yeah, that might... So let's, like all of this stuff, I guess we could get into different details of what could work and what couldn't. But for transportation, I guess if you have like a bus pass, that's probably the same amount every month. But if you have a car and you're paying for gas, you're paying for insurance and some of that stuff, then that could possibly change month to month, right? Insurance, probably not, but for gas money and all of that, yeah, that could change. Anything else you can think of? What else do you think as an adult or in the future, what do you think that you might be spending your money on? Groceries, transportation. We've talked about all the basics. What's that? Education. Let's say we're past the point where you've paid for your education. So we're looking way ahead. Although the reality is you could be doing your education at any point in your life. But yeah, Tracy? Medical bills, so where would that go? Fixed or variable? Yeah, so do you see with a lot of these things, it's good that we're having this conversation. It kind of depends on your situation, right? So it depends on, some people have medical insurance where they're paying a monthly bill. For others, that's already included in their workplace or their employer pays for that, and it's deducted off of your, remember those deductions we talked about the first day? So that could be the situation. But does this kind of what about entertainment? Do you know what I mean by that? Like that might be different for different people, but what sort of stuff that's probably entertainment. Probably different for each person, but what are some of the things that could go under the category of entertainment that you might spend money on, Chloe? Pardon? Netflix, yeah, that counts. Sean?
Sports, like watching.
Sports.
Basketball games.
Yeah, like maybe going to a game or paying to watch a game at home. Alex? Cable TV. Yep. Yep.
Like live shows, like Broadway.
Yeah, live shows like Broadway, dances, theater, music, any of those things, right? So any of the stuff that's entertainment would likely change month to month depending on what you have going on. So I think that's good. It gives us an idea of money that would be coming in versus money that would be going out. Let's just run through a quick example that I feel like you don't maybe need me for at this point. But if Sienna has a gross income, remind me again, or for people who weren't here, what does gross income mean again? Kira? Good, your total income before any deductions. And she is deducted 25% in taxes. That's a lot. But anyways, that's what the example says. What is her net pay? How do we do this? What do I do with that $54,000? Times it by... Okay, good. I'm glad that this is coming up. So somebody said 75% and somebody else said 25%. Both are correct depending on what we do in the next step. Let's talk about that. If we want to multiply it by, maybe we'll go the step-by-step route. So if I want to multiply it by the 25%, first of all, what is that as a decimal? 0.25. Are we all pretty okay with that by now? And then if you have a calculator, you can punch it into your calculator. And can you tell me what we would get if we did that? Anybody have an answer? 13,500. Good. Yeah, you got the same thing. So what exactly did we just find? What is that 13,000? What does that represent? Yeah, Andy. Yeah, so these are the taxes taken off. I guess I'm being lazy. I can write taken off. There we go. Does that make sense so far? So then if we want, but this asked what is her net pay. So to actually figure out her net pay, what should I do? What's the next step? Yeah, Andy. Yep. Yeah, so since we did these calculations, let's subtract, and then we'll talk about the other one in a minute. You and Alex both were saying the same thing, and so we'll talk about that in just a second. So what we end up getting is 40,500 when we do this subtraction. So this would be, is Sienna's net pay. That's the amount that she gets to keep after the taxes have been taken off. So now let's go back and talk about the suggestion that both Alex and Andy had given us, which was to, instead of doing the first multiplying by 0.25, then subtracting that value off, we could have just taken our 54,000, and I'm going to just write it down, but we won't actually do it because we already have the answer. But we could have done 54,000 times 0.75. And what would that tell us? That would automatically, in one step, just tell us the overall net pay. Does that make sense to everybody? So both methods, both ways of doing it are correct. But the second method, the multiplying by 0.75, will allow us to tell, like it basically tells us 75% is the amount that would be left. So by multiplying that by the initial gross pay, it automatically tells us what would be left. Good? Page 73, numbers 1 to 4, all is the work that you have.